I used to have such a different outlook on life. I was actually saying to a friend the other day how I feel like I'm a completely different person to who I was just 3 years ago. But when I think about it, the changes started quite a little bit before then. And when I look back at my life over the past several years, it has changed dramatically and in many areas for the better. And I think it all comes down to my mindset, because it's the mindset shifts that have made the difference to my habits, how I approach things, how I think about things, and overall have changed my life. So in this video, I wanted to share some of those biggest mindset shifts that have changed my life. Accept your current reality and be honest with yourself. I feel like you can't really change your current circumstances if you don't first accept them. An example in my life is that years ago I was pretty broke for a long period, and I was very much in denial about this. So I would spend like I wasn't, and so I kind of got stuck in a cycle of never really having any money because I was in denial about the situation I was in. So it just perpetuated itself, and it wasn't really until I had a sit down with myself and had to face some hard truths that I really started to realize what I wanted to be different about my life and what I needed to change. I think it's really good to be honest with yourself, because if you block things out, you can get stuck in the same old cycles. And so asking yourself questions like, are you happy with your current day-to-day life? Are you where you want to be or heading in the right direction? One of my favourite quotes, I heard this on Alex Manzi's podcast. I'm not sure who the quote initially came from, but it basically goes, change happens when you get tired of your own bullshit. And this is one that I regularly remind myself, and it's so true, because anytime I have had the most momentous change in my life, it's after a period of getting tired of hearing my same old excuses as to why I can't do a certain thing or why I'm not getting something done. And I really think that when you accept where you are now, you can then plan and get to where you need to go. Connect with yourself and embrace who you are. How can you know what you really want if you don't know who you really are? Get to know yourself. It's not necessarily a quick fix overnight thing. It can take time. I feel like things that have really helped me is journaling, spending time alone, and just generally being that bit more introspective. I used to think I really knew myself, but when I think about it, it was more on a surface level. And even now I'm constantly exploring and connecting with myself. I've always been very social, and so I used to think that I was an extrovert, and honestly, I used to go out all the time and I would just fill my time with being social. But through connecting with myself and spending more quality time alone, I've realized I'm actually someone who needs alone time and really values that quality alone time. And so I guess I'm an ambivert, I think they call it. But anyway, now that's something I better understand about myself, and so I know not to fill my social calendar to the brim, because it will leave me feeling drained. And I think in getting to know ourselves more, we can then begin to understand why we do certain things, different behaviors, what works for us, what doesn't, and we can really start to embrace all those different sides of us. The more you understand yourself, the more you can create a life that serves you, and the more you can show up as your truest and most authentic self to those around you as well. And I think that just lends itself to better and deeper connections, I have found. So overall, connecting with yourself actually helps you to also better connect with others. You are in control of your own reality. I think deep down I've kind of always known this, but to some level I used to be someone who pretty much waited for things to happen to me. And by that I mean I'd kind of like, I'd put some level of effort in or give some level of direction of where I wanted things to go, but then I'd be like, my part's done here, I'm going to sit back and hope for the best. And I think in that I've definitely missed out on a lot of opportunities along the way, because I didn't fully take action where maybe I could have done, because I pretty much thought that, life is just happening and there's not much we can do. And whilst on the grand scheme of things, there is a lot out of our control, and sometimes it can feel overwhelming to that extent if you think about the whole world. there is a lot within our immediate environment and within our own actions that we can control. I've spoke a lot previously about our thoughts and how they can have a big impact on our overall day-to-day life. I think I mentioned in my self-love video how the way we speak to ourselves can have such a big effect. And I've found being very aware of these things and being very intentional about how I'm thinking, it really has a knock-on effect of how I act and show up in the world, and in turn changed how I take action in my own reality and take control of things. So it's really important that if you want certain things in life, you really have to put yourself out there and put yourself in that direction. Again, I think I mentioned this in my self-love video, but if you wanted to meet a partner, for example, you need to put yourself out there, be it in dating apps or in real life. Again, if you want to meet new people, there is obviously a level of things just happening from time to time, but I also think a lot of those things happen as a knock-off effect of the action that we've taken along the way. So you are in control of your own reality. So if you want change, then you've got to move that needle and make things happen. Improvement takes consistent commitment. This is a biggie for me because it kind of follows on from the last mindset shift, but I think when I realized that things take time and that you can improve at things if you commit to them, that has been the most monumental thing, shall we say, in helping me make real change in my life. I've always been a bit of a dreamer, but I've not necessarily always put the work in. And I'm someone who's into manifestation, the law of attraction, whatever you want to call it. But I do also think there's a level of taking action. I guess it comes back to the being in control of your own reality. Things can happen, but you kind of have to put yourself out there a little bit. For example, I manifested passing my driving test, but I did take lessons. So consistently over time, I got better at driving, which allowed me to pass my driving test when I did. I manifested becoming a full-time content creator, but I still had to create content. I didn't just kind of, create a blog one day and sit there and wait for the followers and the money to flow in. That's not how it happens. So I think there has to be a level of having that consistency and commitment. I really used to be someone who just believed in raw talent, and don't get me wrong, I think we sort of have abilities that can kind of lend to us going in a certain direction. However, I think we can improve in any area that we want to if we commit to it. And I think a great example for me is just as being a content creator in general. When I first tackled photography and editing video, I was so overwhelmed. I thought, how am I possibly going to understand all this stuff? I remember I tried in every which way to just wing it, and for ages I just took photos on auto. I didn't really learn editing software when it came to videos until I was ready to be committed. And in that time I've seen so much progress, and I believe that with anything you want to put your mind to it, you can improve, be it a foreign language or getting into the gym or fitness or whatever. For me personally, a more recent thing in the past several years has been yoga. When I first started, I could barely do a downward dog. Now I'm twisting myself into some positions. I don't even know how I get there. And I still have a way to go as I continue to strengthen that practice. But consistent commitment is what gets you closer to where you want to be. And I think having that mindset allows you to start things and embrace being a beginner and not be so afraid to be bad to start with, because you just know that if you're consistent with it and you commit to it, then you are going to see improvement along the way. Short-term sacrifice for long-term reward. I used to pursue fun at every turn. I used to describe myself as a hedonist. Maybe that's a little bit too strong of a description now, but basically where there was fun, I would seek it. If I had said I want to have a day filming videos and a friend messaged me and was like, hey, you want to hang out today? I would scrap my plans to film and I would go out straight away. And I had this mentality for a good chunk of my 20s, probably all of my teens. I very much had this living in the moment sort of mentality, and whilst I do think some of that can be good, I think I probably set myself back in a lot of areas and could have got a lot further ahead in certain areas if I would have just taken the time, just some time, not even all of the time, but just taking a little bit more time to get my head down and focus. And I have no regrets in that area, because I think I needed to have that experience to realize what works for me in my life long term. And I had a very fun 20s, but did I get the progress in other areas of my life that I wanted? Maybe not. And so it's just realizing what you need to do in the moment that's going to make life maybe easier for you or better for you in the future. And the future doesn't always have to be long. I'm not about this, hustle hard now. What is it, like retire when you're 40 or something? I'm not about that. If it's for you, good for you. I'm definitely someone who likes to enjoy themselves, and I'm all for having rest. I think it's so important. But I also think there has to be a level of focusing in when you need to, and realizing that some sacrifice has to be made, which can be great for your future. I think the times where I really have got my head down and focused on stuff, I've seen immense growth, and this could be in all areas. It could be with your fitness, with your work. I speak a lot about this in my video, Do Something Today That Your Future Self Will Thank You For. I will leave a link to that down below. But yeah, I think this has been a great mindset shift for me, because it just allows me to focus, and then I've been able to reap the rewards later. Create your own path. This is basically like everything I talked about in my Don't Let What Everyone Else Is Doing Distract You video, because the title pretty much sums it up. Don't let what everyone else is doing distract you. I think this kind of goes back to the earlier mindset shift of really knowing yourself and what works for you. I am someone who, it's sad to say, but I spent a lot of time in this sort of comparison mode, checking up on what other people were doing, particularly in my early 20s, late teens. And if there was like a big brother or a fly on the wall watching me, they probably would have been able to tot up hours of me just looking at what other people are doing and then not taking action in those moments. For example, when I first became a content creator or blogger at the time, I very much spent a lot of time kind of seeing what other people were doing, and definitely early on I thought I needed to dress a certain way, create content in a certain way, and it's only been over time as I've really embraced myself and my own interests and quirks and personality, I've been able to display that more, and through that it's actually what's allowed me to do this as a full-time job, as I now create creative videos and stop motions, which are quite different to what a lot of people do in my niche. And so I've been able to create my own path, and each one of us have our own unique gifts. So whatever you're doing, you'll be able to put a spin on something that is right to you. And I think even in the sense of creating your own path, as in what you want to do in life, it doesn't always have to be so linear, and just because Mary down the road has done XYZ doesn't mean that you need to do things in the same order or even the same things. It's okay to create your own path, and I think having that mindset is just so freeing, and it kind of stops us from putting ourselves in a box. So that one has been a really big one for me. Failure is a part of the process. I used to be so afraid to fail that I wouldn't start particular things. But now when I look back at my failures, some of them have actually been my biggest blessings. Blessings because with some things I'm like, thank goodness I didn't go down that path. And also in the fact that I've been able to learn from a lot of them. One of my failures that I love to talk about is the time that I thought I would start a shop making bags. So random. If you used to follow my blog back in the day, you may have seen that. But I got into this mode of making and selling bags, and I had a website made and I was all excited. And then not long in, I realised that I didn't like making bags. I enjoyed the designing, but I didn't enjoy the making of it. And so I quit. After putting all this time into it, I just quit. And that is something that you could easily say I failed at. But for me, it was a big lesson. I learned a lot of lessons through it. I learned how to not run a business, which has then helped me to run my current business. It taught me what I actually wanted, and it also taught me that it's okay to change direction. Just because I'd invested all that time and effort into that particular thing, once I realized it wasn't right for me, I wasn't afraid to pivot, and that was actually really, really valuable. Once you realize that failure is part of the progress, it's like, right, on to the next one. And then once you're not afraid to fail, you're not afraid to start something new, because the potential of failing can hold us back. It can make us procrastinate, it can make us perfectionists, but sometimes you've just got to get stuck in. Be patient. It's so important to trust in the process. I guess this ties into the earlier mindset shift that improvement takes consistent commitment, and it is so true because you need that patience to keep you going. I am someone who used to want instant results, or I used to expect them and kind of give up if I thought, well, this isn't working, so on to the next. But I've realized that, you know, each day that little 1% is just moving the needle along, and sometimes when we're in it we can't see it happening, and I still get frustrated sometimes now when I'm, you know, putting work into something and it doesn't feel like anything's happening. But it can just be one day you look back and you're like, oh, I've come all this way. And sometimes it can feel like we are stagnant for weeks, months, even years at time, and then one day you can be like, wow, like it can just happen. And that's why I think we have that myth of like the overnight success, because often people haven't taken into account the 10 plus years of work they've put in beforehand. I think with everything, be patient and tying it back into that consistent commitment to whatever it is that you're working towards or focusing on, and that is, yeah, it's a biggie. So those were just some of my mindset shifts that really helped to change my life. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you're able to get something from this. Let me know down below if there are any mindsets that have helped or are currently helping to change your life. I would love to know about them. And if you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, click subscribe if you haven't done already. I do more videos like this, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.